Boy, that season of anime was tight. This entire year, I've been really blown away by not only the number of anime coming out after the drought that was 2020, with so many being pushed back, but also the quality. It wasn't just that we had a shit ton of anime that were average or okay, it's that we've been getting a shit ton of anime that have been absolutely incredible. That even myself, the shows that I love and I'm trying to convince people to watch, I get why some people can't watch them because there's so much on your plate that you just can't consume it all. And I even find myself in the same boat where people are trying to say, you gotta watch this, you gotta watch that, but honestly, it's a little difficult when you're already feeling so full as is. But before we jump in, we do have to give a shout out to today's sponsor, which is Boxu. The fine folks over at Boxu have decided to partner with me once again to talk about Japan's #1 snack box service, or at least in my mind, the #1 given the quality. Boxu is a gourmet journey across Japan that every single month you'll receive a unique assortment of Japanese treats and tea pairings straight to your door. The area that helps set Boxu apart from other snack box subscription service is that every month you not only receive a different theme, but with said theme, the snacks inside will be different. So while I still get to experience my delicious cake like in last month's box, I also get brand new goodies, like these tasty plum potato sticks. They sort of remind me of hickory sticks that you can buy in grocery stores, but with a lighter feel to them. Or my personal favorite snack, the sake hard candies, which melt in your mouth with this sweet aftertaste. Each month you'll receive a cultural guide that details each item's origins and ingredients, so there's never any worries about allergies of what you're eating and you know where each item came from. Like I said last time, I'm impressed with not only the quality and diversity of the snacks, all from different snack makers across Japan. The quality and shipping is without a doubt the best I've experienced next to large retailers. So do yourself a favor and use my link and coupon code located in the description below. You'll save yourself some money while also supporting the channel, and soon enough you too will be searching for many of these treats in bigger bulk, as some are hard to resist. Seriously, I want a bulk order of those sake candies alone. Now, as someone who's been watching My Hero Academia since Season 1 and been reviewing it since Season 2, I mean, Season 5 to me has been everything that I loved while going back into that classic route of basically it's one big training arc for the first half. We're having that classic Season 1 battle shonen shenanigans with the experience of all the past seasons and arcs, so you get to see characters big and small and see how far they've come. Now, for those who want the next arc, which is carrying over into the next season, sure, this season may not be for you, but if someone who's loved every character in some way, and even the characters maybe I haven't enjoyed to the biggest extent, this was the type of season that we got to see so many different perspectives, fight styles, to see how far all these characters have progressed, to get us understanding where their skill sets are at before we jump into the next wave of insanity. With a great animation, some killer soundtrack, and even some interesting incorporation of 3D camera work, what I've seen of My Hero so far has been nothing short of very fun and at certain points truly spectacular. Now, as a huge fan of Soma Spider So What, this is no real shocker to anyone who's been even listening even a little bit to my thoughts on it. I think it's one of the best isekais. You have two different perspectives, both in the past and the present, with two very different sets of characters, as the plot lines slowly overlap as you're watching a pretty fun take on 3D production with this insane plot that has you speculating every single week, and when your theories are shattered, you get to make brand new ones. It's a show that rather than just getting your main character being super overpowered from the start, she has to work her ass off as she's reincarnated as a spider thrown into the most dangerous pits of hell, as you have this mystery of what's happening with the world and these demon lords. Give Spider a shot. While certain points of the 3D may not be for you, it honestly is a really well done production, and when it does dip, who honestly cares when the story is really holding it together? Now, Tokyo Revengers is an incredible show surrounding the idea of time travel, and time travel's been done a fair amount in anime, but only so often does it really stick its landing, and there's two big ways to do so. Have enough detail to it to make it understandable without going too schoolbook, making it feel like it's really dry and boring, or you go a more supernatural approach, but don't go too crazy into it, but just cover your tracks so we understand. And that's exactly what Tokyo Revengers does. It explains how our main character Takemichi can go both forward and backwards in time with this very strict rule set that is both a blessing and a curse, as he's trying to stop a gang from going batshit wild in the future that his ex-girlfriend gets killed by, so he's trying to both correct his own failures in the past while simultaneously trying to stop a plot line from occurring that seemingly is destined to happen one way or another. Tokyo Revengers, characters, amazing, time travel, some of the best I've seen, honestly up there with Steins Gate for me in terms of that type of mechanic. Just an incredible show across the board and probably one of the season's highlights. Now, To Your Eternity, when you have the author of The Silent Voice creating apparently this insane emotional manga, and then you have this 20-episode anime, and you're just watching a story of an immortal who starts as a rock, and with each experience, it gets a new form and it learns what it means to be human. If you love the kind of evolution that is someone like the main character in one of my favorite anime in the past few years, Dororo, you have a character who has to learn how to speak, what it means to talk. As you're interacting with all these different people, you know eventually everyone has to end up passing, because if you're an immortal, you're going to outlive everyone. So it's never a question of, is something bad going to happen? It's a matter of when it will happen. And especially when you get to the later portions of the first core, the arcs last a surprisingly long time, so it's not easy to predict when bad things will happen. In fact, it got to the point when I thought a character would die, they outlived and we would time skip multiple years, and it completely caught me by surprise when different things would occur. It's a story about progression and what it means to live, and the idea of understanding that loss is something that has to be a part of life. It's just such a great story with some of the most emotional heart punches that I've probably seen in the past year, and I feel like it's only going to get more and more of a tearjerker the more I watch in summer season. Slime Diaries is one of the more interesting spin-off series. Generally, when you have any sort of spin-off that's a more simpler approach to that of the main series, it's easy to brush it aside. It's actually perfect to watch Season 1 and then watch the Slime Diaries before watching Season 2, because what you get is essentially a non-Biori style slice of life with the humor of slime, with this amazing cast of characters where you watch farming, we watch winter festivals, you watch a bunch of parties, but most importantly, you get to build with this large cast of characters that it's always going to be impossible to give the spotlight to all of them because there's far too many characters. But by having the Slime Diaries act as a way to get to know them better on a personal level, it not only makes you appreciate part 1 of Season 2 more, but it gets you more interested in part 2 of Season 2, because now we know them on a deeper personal level. It works as a standalone amazing slice of life, but it also works as character building for the main series, which you don't get to see too often, especially in any sort of spin-off series. Now, Combatants Will Be Dispatched comes to us from the author of Konosuba. In fact, this was the story that came before originally the web novel of Konosuba. Just Konosuba blew up in popularity, so it got the light novel first. And I have to say, while I do get why it may not be for everyone, it's definitely a lot more raunchy with certain jokes. The idea of having a human and an android invade another world to basically conquer it because they are the evil characters, as you watch ridiculous shenanigans take place, from the idea of turning a nation's water dispenser that is their entire source of water, you have to say a dirty line in order to use it, to just the absolute insanity of the top-notch joke, which I will not spoil for you if you've yet to see it, but it is without a doubt one of the most ludicrous scenes I've ever seen in anime. This is a show that's meant to make you laugh, and no matter what character pairings on screen, whether it's from the antagonist side with Hsieh to the insane riot that is Agent 6. Everything is hilarious. Crossing my fingers for not only a Season 2, but a Season 3 of this show, and hopefully in return we'll also get that Konosuba Season 3 in the future. Story about prejudice and discrimination, where you're essentially fighting in what's called a bloodless war. It's something that you know is going to hit you in the feels, because how can you have a truly bloodless war? And it's difficult to really sell to someone who's yet to experience 86, but if you want to see some of the more emotionally engaging character progression from a character like Lena starting off on this very nice looking side of society to the heart-throbbing and destructive nature of the 86's story, you're going to experience something that will rip your heart out, but will also inspire you at multiple points, with some of the best 3D animation that I think the mecha side of anime has seen. You not only get an interesting flair to mechas, because they're almost these spider-like machines, so you're not in that typical humanoid-looking, tank-driven combat. You're very fast-moving against the opponents known as the Legion. At every point where you think you know exactly where the story wants to go, it will throw you a new curveball. You definitely see a lot of possibilities for Core 2, which is already confirmed to be in production. And the future of 86 not only has the potential to be one of the best military stories, it truly has the potential to be one of the medium's best in the past decade if the second core really continues on with the quality that was laid out in the first core. 86 might be the most emotional story of the season, which is saying a lot given the fact that To Your Eternity is in the same season, right? Now, Full Dive comes to us from the creator of Cautious Hero, and if you know of Cautious Hero, you know what type of insanity you're going to get. Otherwise, what is Full Dive? Full Dive is a show where you're playing the shittiest game imaginable. It's so realistic that if you die in the game, your game console will break. So why would you play it? And that's a big question for the intro. Why the hell would you play such a shitty game that not only is so realistic, it's boring, but it also will destroy what you have? Originally, it's because, well, it's the only game you have, and you watch a character hero reluctantly play. But as we get deeper in the episode count, the realism actually becomes a form of challenge similar to that of, like, say, Dark Souls, but cranked up by 100. It becomes this type of system that the more you learn about it, the more honestly interesting the game becomes. And the creator of the series actually did an AMA on Reddit, which basically he said, if you're watching this show to connect to Hero and these other characters in ways, you're going to feel very hurt when bad things happen. But if you watch it similar to that of The Simpsons, you're just going to watch situational comedy take place with a pretty interesting world behind it. And that's the best way to view it. If you're looking at it to see Hero make these massive leaps in character progression, getting hurt alongside Hero, then yeah, I can understand why maybe this show isn't rated that highly on certain tracking sites like MyAnimeList. I mean, by the time we reached the second to last episode, it had me dying for a season 2, given the way the game progressed and how interesting it is and how you have to really think outside the box in order to make any strides in this game. It's hilarious, and even when it may not be having me bust out loud laughing, the game mechanics are honestly really interesting, though it's understandable why a game like this could get sued to oblivion. Now, Vivy is a show from not only the Chaos Child writer, but also ReZero's author. It was basically written as a novel to then be adapted by Studio Wit, with some of the tightest production anime has seen this year. Ever since Wit dropped doing Attack on Titan, they've rechanged how they do anime. They aren't about these rush deadlines. They are all about quality and taking their time. And watching a story about an AI coming back in time saying, hey, we need to stop the destruction of humanity because AIs are gonna rise up and destroy everything. So you have to do this singularity project, taking point by point. And what you think's going to happen, especially with characters like Matsumoto, this bot that's saying, I'm going to save the future. It is a roller coaster that it looks amazing, sounds amazing, the characters are really tightly written, with an emphasis put on time travel in a way that's not overbearing, but it does cover its tracks similar to that of, say, like Tokyo Revengers. One of the coolest originals I think I've ever seen, lives up to the quality of the writers behind it with their previous works that have been adapted, but I think it sets a new expectations on what anime originals should be. Even without this gorgeous production, the story is so incredible. One of the coolest productions I've ever seen in anime. Now, Zombieland Saga Revenge is the second season to MAPPA's Zombie Idol show. And this series, I originally was okay with it being a one and done season, but there was still so much more story left to tell, so what would Revenge really do? If you want to see not only an idol show take a fresh approach, but honestly, have a kind of like end goal boss that you're aiming to defeat, similar to that of like a shonen show, it blends it in such a way while having these emotional high points that really just knock your socks off and have you saying, as much as I would love more, I could also see it ending here. MAPPA has a gold mine with Zombieland Saga, and rather than just simply milking it for more because the music, the CD sold like hotcakes, you truly have something that I think is some of the more standout in the music genre. And not all idol shows are bad, contrary to popular beliefs. There's plenty that are actually good, but I truly feel like MAPPA, with the way they progress these zombie idols, it's some of the coolest I've seen in character progression in terms of an idol show. Some of the best bangers in terms of the music genre for sure. When it comes to originality in anime, it's very hard to come out of a show saying, this actually feels like nothing I've ever experienced. But Shadow's House, with its approach to storytelling, the main idea that it has going for it, which is you have these dolls that work for faces, these shadows that look identical, just clearly without the details, and how you very much early on probably have a very good idea of what's going on, but as it branches off more and more, there comes plot twists that you just can't see coming. The idea of what these shadows do to these living dolls of what they're called is unlike anything I've ever seen in anime. Sure, I can take pieces even from different Cloverworks shows like The Promised Neverland, the ability of not being able to leave the house, but the idea of the shadows and basically their faces is unlike anything I've experienced. The production is insanely well done, the characters across the board really are insane. Ricky, as well as a character known as Rum, early on, I had very strong impressions of who they were, but later into the episode count, they became some of my favorites, which I never would have said early on. The character progression and the way they tackle this mystery is really well done. Certain things aren't meant to be that big of a secret, where others you really don't see coming until they hit you in the face like a truck. The way they hit you with some of these plot twists, you swear you were about to get isekai'd into another series. Now, Fruits Basket and its final season finally concludes the story that we've been building up for now 3 years. A classic series finally getting the adaptation it deserves. And from all the relationships finally coming together in harmony, one of the things that I've always been wanting to see is how they would conclude a story about forgiveness, especially in the wake of having an antagonist like Akito, who literally tries to kill people at multiple points in the show. Fruits Basket is a story that is so tightly written that whether you love or hate Akito by the end, you can't deny that the way they handled forgiveness, some characters more embracing to it than others, it ends in such a satisfying way that rather than rushing to an outcome, you basically have half a season of epilogue, which you never get to see. And for 63 episodes, Fruits Basket has lived up to the hype that manga readers have been giving it for so long, and it's nice to see it go out with a high quality production rather than a rushed mess. Mars Red is probably going to be one of the most forgotten shows of the season, and not because it's bad, but because it came out in a time where there's so much anime that people saw a vampire show and shrugged it off. But if you enjoy theatrical-like performances, which this is adapted from a stage play that uses vampires not as a gimmick for bloodthirsty creatures of the night, but rather intelligently written military story that is using them in order to combat the idea of people dying in battle, but using them to basically solve the issue of young boys going off to war and never coming home, to then spiraling into this insane mystery that has character progression out the ass. Yamagami is one of my favorite characters in this show with where he goes, and similar to that of Shadow's House, starts off in a way I never thought I would enjoy, but became one of the series' best. If you want to see finally a good vampire story that doesn't use them as a gimmick, but uses them as an asset, please give Mars Red a shot. This is a show that deserves more praise. Even if you're just gonna give it a mindless binge, give this one a shot. It's really, really well done. Then you also have the sequel to Gridman. This show is a tokusatsu fan's wet dream, basically. That's honestly the best way to put it. It's all about characters. Where Gridman, I think, excelled in the antagonist front, Dynazenon excels in the protagonist. Its antagonists aren't as well developed as that of its counterpart Gridman, but the fights are even better, they're better animated, and the way it ties into even the original Gridman live action series, whether you're a fan of that or you're fresh to the series, it just creates this insanely fun Power Rangers-like adventure where you're watching giant-ass kaiju beat the shit out of each other as you watch different characters come to terms with their own struggles in their life, and by fighting together, they're able to overcome those personal struggles. I may have problems with maybe not the antagonists getting fleshed out as much as they should have been, but it's still an incredibly memorable experience that has great fights, great character progressions, and has some of the most realistic dialogue and awkward pauses that really created something that felt like actual people talking, rather than just anime personalities like their character designs might indicate they would be. And as for my personal favorite show of the season, that has to go to Megalo Box Season 2 Nomad. I would love nothing more than to gush about the spoiler reasons of why I love this show, but for a season about boxing that has very little boxing, but all the fights come from internal conflict because of a character dying which caused separation among the group, how a Nomad Joe returns to the fold and a different Nomad Mac comes into the fold. Where the season goes with death flags and emotional baggage, and how characters come together and are forced to separate, it makes Season 1 look okay, and I was someone who praised Season 1 as being a masterpiece and a reimagining of Tomorrow's Joe. Season 2 doesn't use Tomorrow's Joe's legacy to carry it forward, it creates its own. And whether you're following Joe or you're following a new character, I think Megalobox is a type of story that could really go on for multiple seasons and create multiple amazing characters that are just as memorable as that of its main character, Joe. Megalobox, probably gonna be my anime of the year. Might be insane to some, but that's how strongly I feel about it. I didn't even talk about stuff like Moriarty the Patriot Season 2 or Irma-kun Season 2. Hell, you had literally Odd Taxi, one of the most odd shows that you would have swore you would have found on something like Adult Swim one night when you're a kid, dealing with this incredibly mature take on stories disguised as cute animals, but they're anything as such. These shows I haven't even fully caught up with because my anime plate has been so stacked, and there's even more anime goodies than just that. This is a season where you can pick and choose. You're realizing that you miss so many quality shows. It's going to be a season you're going to have to come back to even multiple seasons down the line and catch up on those great shows you missed out on. But all I can say is no matter what type of anime fan you are in for a treat. I mean, look at the length of this goddamn video, am I right? But let me know your favorite shows down in the comment section below. Drop a like to help promote this video, and of course subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time everyone, please take care, and keep having fun with that anime goodness.